Good evening. Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei just made the most dangerous miscalculation of his 36-year rule. Standing before cameras while nuclear talks began in Geneva, Khamenei looked directly at America's military buildup in the Persian Gulf and said an aircraft carrier is certainly a dangerous machine, but more dangerous than the carrier is the weapon that can send it to the bottom of the sea. Bottom of the sea. Khamenei is threatening to sink the USS Gerald R. Ford, America's largest and most powerful aircraft carrier, the exact same warship that just 6 weeks ago on January 3rd enabled American special forces to capture Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in a lightning raid while Caracas was plunged into darkness and Venezuela's air defense systems were obliterated in precise bombardment. And President Donald Trump's response to Khamenei's carrier-sinking threat is exactly what it should be. Complete undeterrence. Trump is not changing course. Trump is not slowing the Ford's deployment. Trump is not softening his demands. Trump is not backing down from his authorization of Israeli strikes on Iran's missile program if talks fail. Khamenei threatened to sink the world's most powerful warship, and Trump responded by continuing to deploy it directly toward Iran. Because Trump understands something Khamenei desperately doesn't want to admit. The Venezuela model is ready to execute against Iran, and it's the most psychologically devastating military capability in American history, not just because of what it does physically, obliterating defenses and enabling lightning raids capturing leaders, but because of what it does psychologically, proving that no government that defies Trump's demands survives the Ford's arrival intact. Maduro found that out on January 3rd when Caracas went dark and his defenses disappeared, and Khamenei is about to find out the same thing if he keeps threatening the ship that already proved it cannot be stopped. Venezuela model is ready, Iran is next, and Khamenei's carrier-sinking threats are not deterrents. They're the last words of a regime that hasn't yet understood what the Ford's January performance means for their survival. Let me start with Khamenei's threat because understanding why it fails as deterrence requires understanding what America just demonstrated in Venezuela 6 weeks ago. Ali Khamenei, supreme leader of Iran since 1989, dismissed the American military buildup by saying an aircraft carrier is certainly a dangerous machine, but more dangerous than carrier is the weapon that can send it to the bottom of the sea. This was deliberate public statement designed to accomplish several things simultaneously. First, it shows domestic Iranian audience that Khamenei is unafraid of American power, projecting strength and resolve to population that might otherwise conclude their leader is capitulating under military pressure. Second, it's designed to deter Trump from escalating military posture by suggesting Iran has asymmetric capability that could destroy American naval assets at enormous political and human cost. Third, it signals to international community that Iran won't simply submit to American demands, potentially encouraging other powers to press for diplomatic resolution rather than supporting military action. And fourth, it's Khamenei trying to reclaim psychological initiative after Trump's deployment of 2 supercarriers created narrative of Iran being cornered and afraid. But Khamenei's threat fails on every level because Venezuela happened. On January 3, 2026, the exact same USS Gerald R. Ford and its strike group enabled lightning operation that captured Maduro. Professor Alessio Patalano of King's College London described the Caracas operation as absolutely remarkable display of strike power and distance with surgical capacity that frankly nobody else can put together like the Americans. And Patalano added that if he were Iran's leader, he would be more concerned about what might happen to me. That expert assessment is what makes Khamenei's threat hollow rather than credible. Venezuela had military too. Venezuela had air defenses too. Venezuela had leader who made defiant statements, and Venezuela's defenses were obliterated before anyone could use whatever weapons might theoretically have stopped the Ford. So when Khamenei claims Iran has weapon to send carrier to bottom of sea, the rational response is, Venezuela claimed defenses too. Venezuela's defenses are rubble, and Maduro is captured. What makes Iran's theoretical weapons more effective than Venezuela's actual deployed defenses against the same ship? The Venezuela model is precisely the framework Trump is applying to Iran, and understanding its components reveals why Trump is completely undeterred by Khamenei's threats. Venezuela model has four elements. First, overwhelming technological superiority through carrier strike group that can project power over thousands of miles with precision that nobody else can replicate. Ford's air wing of approximately 75 aircraft includes F-35C stealth fighters that Iranian air defenses cannot reliably detect or track, same way Venezuelan defenses couldn't track what was coming before it arrived. FA-18 Super Hornets carrying precision weapons for destroying hardened targets. EA-18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft that jam enemy radar and communication systems, blinding defenses before they can respond. And E-2D Advanced Hawkeye early warning aircraft coordinating strike packages with real-time intelligence. Second element is intelligence penetration, where American capabilities know exactly where targets are, what defenses protect them, and how to neutralize those defenses before they can be used. Caracas defenses were obliterated precisely because American intelligence identified every system and electronic warfare disrupted them before kinetic strikes destroyed them. Iran's defenses face same intelligence penetration and disruption capability. Third element is psychological shock through speed and darkness. Caracas plunged into darkness instantly because power grid was targeted simultaneously with air defenses, creating confusion and paralysis that prevented organized response. Iran's grid and communication infrastructure faces same vulnerability to simultaneous attack, creating chaos that prevents effective military response. Fourth element is decapitation strike capability, where lightning raid captures or eliminates leadership once defenses are down. Maduro captured. Iranian leadership knows their potential targets for similar operation. And Trump's authorization of weeks-long operations against Iran explicitly prepares for regime infrastructure elimination, including leadership targets. Venezuela model is ready because all four elements are prepared, positioned, and proven to work against defended targets. Iran is next because Iran meets all criteria that Venezuela met: defiant regime, nuclear or weapons program threatening American interests, leader making threatening statements, and inadequate defenses against American technological superiority. And Trump is specifically deploying the same weapon that executed Venezuela model, the USS Gerald R. Ford, toward Iran. This is not coincidence. This is deliberate psychological warfare using the exact ship that captured Maduro to create maximum fear in Tehran. Trump revived gunboat diplomacy with a specific addition. He's using the gun that already fired and proved effective, not a theoretical weapon whose capabilities are untested. The message to Khamenei couldn't be more specific. This is the ship that obliterated Caracas defenses. This is the ship that captured Maduro. This ship is now approaching your waters. And when Trump orders, this ship does to Tehran what it did to Caracas. Professor Patalano captured the psychological dimension perfectly when he said the Caracas operation introduced a new kind of psychological capacity, because unlike nuclear weapons whose use is too catastrophic to be credible, or conventional threats that enemies can rationalize away, Ford's Venezuela operation proved it can conduct precision operations against defended capitals with surgical accuracy that makes the threat not just real but specifically and demonstrably applicable to Iran's situation. Khamenei watched Caracas go dark, Khamenei watched Maduro get captured, and Khamenei is watching the same ship that did those things approach his region. His carrier-sinking threats are his attempt to convince himself and his population that Venezuela's fate won't be Iran's fate. But the Ford's track record since January says otherwise, and Trump being completely undeterred by these threats proves Trump believes the Ford's actual capability exceeds Khamenei's theoretical weapons for sending it to sea bottom. And the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps closing Strait of Hormuz for several hours for live fire drills, the first time Hormuz has been blocked since the 1980s tanker wars, is Iran's most desperate attempt to demonstrate capability and resolve. 40 years ago, during tanker wars of 1980s, Iran last closed Hormuz. 4 decades of restraint on Hormuz closure reveals Iran understood that actually interfering with this strategic choke point connecting oil producers to Gulf of Oman and Arabian Sea invites overwhelming American military response. 20% of global oil passes through Hormuz. Closing it disrupts world economy but also provides America with undeniable justification for military response, reopening it by force. So Iran avoided Hormuz interference for 40 years because the cost-benefit calculation was always negative. Iran suffers military strikes, international condemnation, and economic isolation in exchange for temporary disruption that America reverses within days through overwhelming naval force. But Iran is closing Hormuz now for the first time in 40 years because they calculate that demonstrating capability is necessary even at diplomatic cost. They want Trump to see that Ford approaching doesn't make Iran helpless. They want a signal that confrontation has real costs, including potential Hormuz closure and oil price spikes. But here's why this fails as deterrence against Trump specifically. Trump deployed 2 aircraft carriers precisely to address the Hormuz threat. USS Lincoln and USS Ford, combined with their destroyer and submarine escorts, provide American Navy with capability to reopen Hormuz by force within hours or days of any closure. Iranian small boats and coastal batteries that threaten commercial shipping face overwhelming American anti-ship missile defense and air superiority that makes sustained Hormuz closure militarily impossible. So Iran's Hormuz live-fire drills are theater showing capability for temporary disruption. But Trump knows the Ford can reopen Hormuz faster than Iran can close it. And Khamenei's weapon-to-sink carriers faces the same credibility problem as Hormuz drills. Claiming capability doesn't demonstrate capability, and Venezuela-proved American capability is actual, not theoretical. Meanwhile, Geneva talks happening simultaneously with Khamenei's threats, and Hormuz drills reveal the stunning contradiction, exposing Iran's desperate strategy. U.S. and Iranian negotiators sat down for high-stakes talks Tuesday in Geneva, with Trump's military threat looming large over discussions. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi was in Geneva reporting understanding on main principles and clearer path ahead to nuclear deal. And simultaneously, Khamenei was in Tehran threatening to sink carriers, and IRGC was closing Hormuz for live fire drills. Think about what this means. Iran's supreme leader is publicly threatening to destroy America's most powerful warship, while Iran's foreign minister is sitting across from American negotiators, agreeing to understandings on main principles. Araghchi can't be threatening to sink the Ford while simultaneously using it as leverage to get better deal terms. The contradiction is impossible to reconcile logically. Khamenei claims weapon to sink Ford. Araghchi says there's clearer path to deal with Ford approaching. Both cannot be true simultaneously. If Iran actually had confidence in capability to sink Ford, Araghchi wouldn't be in Geneva agreeing to anything. He'd be refusing talks entirely from position of military strength. But Araghchi is in Geneva making concessions because Iran doesn't actually believe they can sink Ford. Khamenei's threats are propaganda for domestic audience. Araghchi's Geneva progress is real strategic concession forced by fear of what the approaching Ford represents, proven by Venezuela, authorized to strike Iran's missiles and regime infrastructure. So the simultaneous threats and concessions don't reveal Iranian sophistication. They reveal Iranian regime making contradictory moves because different audiences require different messages. Domestic audience needs to hear no surrender rhetoric. International negotiating reality requires concessions to avoid Ford-based destruction, and Trump sees through both, undeterred by threats, continuing Ford deployment, maintaining military shadow over Geneva talks that's producing the understanding Iran's leaders publicly claim to resist. And Iran's Chief of Staff Major General Sayed Abdulrahim Musavi warning Trump that entering war with Iran would be unforgettable lesson, instructive battle for the American president, is Iran's most detailed military deterrence claim. Musavi's statement reflects multi-layered deterrence doctrine based on field experience and technological advancement. And these words are more than verbal warning, according to Iranian state media, reflecting strategic calculation rooted in Iran's real capabilities. But real capabilities and effective capabilities against America's overwhelming force are different things. Venezuela's air defenses were real. They existed, They were manned by trained operators, they used actual radar and missile systems, and they were obliterated before they could mount effective defense because American electronic warfare blinded them, stealth aircraft evaded detection, and precision strikes destroyed systems before operators could respond. Iran's multi-layered deterrence faces same challenge. Whatever real capabilities Iran has developed face an adversary whose electronic warfare, stealth technology, intelligence penetration, and precision strike capability proved against real defended targets in Venezuela can systematically dismantle those capabilities before they're effectively employed. Mousavi's instructive battle language suggests Iran believes its doctrine will surprise Trump. But Trump ordered the Caracas operation knowing Venezuela had defenses and achieved complete surprise and success anyway. Trump's military isn't being bullied into caution by Iranian generals' warnings. Trump's military is preparing weeks-long operations that assume Iran will try to employ its deterrence doctrine and have planned specifically to defeat those attempts. So Mousavi's warnings are sincere from Iranian military perspective, but ineffective from strategic perspective, because Trump has already seen what the Ford does to regimes that rely on similar deterrence claims. And Trump's specific choice of Venezuelan model for Iran reveals strategic sophistication beyond just sending carriers. Venezuela operation on January 3rd established several precedents relevant to Iran. First, Trump will actually use overwhelming force against defiant regimes, not just threaten it. Obama threatened red lines and didn't enforce them. Trump ordered Caracas operation when Venezuela resisted. That precedent eliminates possibility that Trump's Iran threats are bluff. Second, the operation was swift, precise, and complete, with Caracas defenses obliterated and Maduro captured before international community could intervene diplomatically to stop it. That speed precedent means Iran cannot count on Russian or Chinese diplomatic intervention saving them once Trump orders operations, because the decisive phase will complete before interventions materialize. Third, the Ford-based strike capability demonstrated range and precision that nobody else can replicate, meaning Iran cannot deter the threat by claiming their geography provides protection that Venezuelan geography didn't provide. And fourth, capturing Maduro rather than killing him created specific deterrence message for other leaders. Trump can take you alive, not just bomb your country, and do it with the same ship now heading toward your region. Khamenei claiming weapons to sink that ship is Khamenei trying to deny this precedent applies to him. But every element of Venezuelan model applies to Iran with greater capability because Iran's nuclear threat provides stronger American justification, Israel's participation adds strike capability, and Netanyahu's four demands provide clear framework for what Iran must surrender to avoid Venezuelan fate. Trump isn't undeterred by Khamenei's threats because Trump is reckless. Trump is undeterred because Trump knows what the Ford did in January and knows Iran's defenses face same vulnerabilities Venezuelan defenses did. And the international expert community validates Trump's confidence through assessments that should terrify Khamenei. Professor Patalano's statement that nobody else can put together the Americans' display of strike power and distance with surgical capacity is peer-reviewed military assessment from serious academic institution, not American propaganda, not Pentagon statement. King's College London War Studies professor evaluating Caracas operation objectively and concluding it demonstrated unique American capability, and Patalano adding that he would be more concerned about what might happen to me if he were Iran's leader isn't speculative. It's expert strategic assessment that Iran's position is objectively more vulnerable than Khamenei's public statements admit, and this expert assessment is what Trump's team is working with when they continue Ford deployment, maintain Israeli strike authorization, and pursue Geneva talks under military shadow. America knows its capabilities are what experts say they are, proven in Venezuela and applicable to Iran. Trump is undeterred by Khamenei's threats not because Trump dismisses Iranian capabilities entirely, but because Trump knows American capabilities exceed whatever Iran has developed when employed with the intelligence, electronic warfare, and precision that Caracas operation demonstrated. Khamenei is making threats based on theoretical weapons. Trump is continuing deployment based on proven capability. And the Venezuela precedent makes the gap between theoretical and proven capability absolutely clear to anyone analyzing this situation objectively. And the Geneva talks proceeding under this military shadow prove Trump's strategy works through fear, not despite Khamenei's threats. Iran came to Geneva because Ford is approaching. Iran agreed to understanding on main principles because Israeli strikes are authorized. Iran expressed cautious optimism because Trump's military threat looms large over every Iranian calculation. And Iran said clearer path ahead because the alternative is experiencing what Caracas experienced in January with the same ship that's now heading toward the Persian Gulf. Khamenei can threaten to sink the Ford. The Ford continues approaching. IRGC can close Hormuz for first time in 40 years. Geneva talks continue producing understanding. Iranian generals can warn of instructive battles and unforgettable lessons. Trump remains undeterred because the Venezuela model proves American capability exceeds Iranian deterrence doctrine. The Ford obliterated Caracas defenses that were also real capabilities. The Ford captured Maduro, who also had bodyguards and security. The Ford did it all in hours before international intervention could prevent it. And the Ford is heading toward Iran with the same strike group, same capability, and same authorization to execute from the same president who ordered Caracas operation. Khamenei's threats are the words of a leader who needs to appear strong for domestic audience, while his regime's reality is that they're negotiating in Geneva because they're afraid of Venezuela's fate. Trump sees both. Trump is undeterred by the threats, and Trump is encouraged by the Geneva progress that fear is producing. Venezuela model is ready. Iran is next unless Geneva talks produce the comprehensive surrender Trump demands. And Khamenei threatening to sink the Ford while his foreign minister agrees to understandings in Geneva proves Iran knows this too. The threats are fear masquerading as confidence. And Trump's undeterred deployment of Ford toward Iran proves he sees through the masquerade to the strategic reality underneath. Iran is cornered, afraid, and negotiating under duress. Venezuela model works, and Iran is next.